Alright, good morning. Welcome to today's class. My name is Jon Witt and this is a handstand prep class. So if you've never taken yourself upside down, I'll give you steps to get to that place. So building up a foundation is a big part of it. Conditioning is a big part of it. Finding a line. And I've said this in previous classes, it doesn't have to be perfect for you to get into it. You don't want to be reckless. You don't want to be just throwing yourself up. But if you've been on your hands before, whether it be yoga or calisthenics, you're building up that foundation to get to that place. So how we're going to start today's class is in a standing position. So I do condition the lower body because I really feel it's essential in getting you to kick up. So if you don't have the strength to kick up, it usually comes from the legs. It's not necessarily a lack of strength in the hands or the arms. So how I'm starting is I just have the front of my foot in the floor. So it's just spreading out the toes. So if you had something going on in your knee or your hip, just a consistent pressure in the foot can be a good starting point. But I'm going to be circling my leg in space, and this will help mobilize the bones of the feet and of the ankle. But it's very good for the knee, very good for the hip. Like I said, if you had something going on where it's just too much pressure, just stick with a static hold. And then as your feet get better, and it will, it's just a matter of working them in steps. You'll get to that point where you can circle the leg. I'm going to circle around the opposite direction. And what I would do is, feel it out and feel what kind of pressure you need in the foot and in the leg. If it's okay, I'm not that I'm bringing a ton of weight in my foot, but I'm bringing enough weight so that I am stimulating the toes so that they can move out, right? So I have a wider toe box. And then I'm just going to come over into the right foot. So my right heel's elevated. I'm just lifting the heel, and I'm just keeping a consistent pressure. So there's some variations of squats where you're on the toes. This is really the beginning stages of that. So if you struggle with being on your knees, having the heel elevated, this is much easier. So I like it for that reason. But I'm going to be circling the leg in or out. Just take note of which direction you're moving the leg, just so that you move it in the opposing direction. But as I'm moving the foot around, like I said, on the left side, is that you want to be applying the right kind of weight. So if it's really difficult for you, maybe you're not bringing so much weight into the foot or the leg that you're moving in space. And then I'm going to move it around in the opposite direction. So now I'm going out, but you might very well be going in. So as I'm moving it, it's quite interesting in the tissues around the foot. So for you, it might be a different sensation than what I feel. But these are very, very good in getting the foot to move around, which I'm going to get into doing some squats. So I'm just going to bring that foot neutral, and I'm standing just so that you can see the side. I'm going to be doing some squats. So feet can turn out when I squat. And the first squat I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit at a quarter squat. And the good thing about a quarter squat, not a deep squat, is this is really all that you need in terms of strengthening the legs. If you want to strengthen the legs and more range, that's why you want to sit lower. But you can get your legs to be very strong in just a quarter squat, and then over time, as your knees get healthier, you can certainly squat to a lower degree. So I'm just squatting here, just kind of feeling out my feet, stretching out my feet, and then coming up, and then squatting down. Like I said, this isn't a big motion, but it's a good starting point to eventually get you to squat lower. So if it's okay to squat lower, I can squat to, say, the height of my knees, and then I could possibly squat into a low kind of squat in this position. If you just want to stretch yourself out, you can stay in this position, right? But I'm going to come up, and then I'm going to squat down, and the slow process of getting down, you can kind of feel out what might be holding you back from sitting into a low squat like this. It's great to elevate the heels. So put a book underneath your heels, both heels, and then that takes a lot of flexibility in the ankle out of this motion. Where what you could do is you could hold an angle that you're weak in, And then as you get tired, it's going to be easier to sit a little bit lower, right? Because your body will kind of give way. But moving in a greater range of motion will dramatically change the quality of the tissues in the legs. So I believe in foam rolling. Like, I think foam rolling is a great thing. But the more you're moving through space like this, the less you'll need of that. You know, I mean, unless you're doing really, really heavy training, you know, then you might need some foam rolling to help adjust the tissues. But I don't really do much of that. You know, I do it if I need it, but it's rare that I need it. So I can come up, and then when I come up, I'm just going to kind of play around with my feet. I'm going to take my arms overhead, and I'm just going to practice the line of the handstand. So I'm just in an overhead position. What I'm going to try to do is bring my tailbone further underneath me and my ribs in. So I'm reaching through the arms. As I reach through the arms, I'm going to try to get my shoulders closer to my head. So as I'm here, I'm really trying to get that scapular elevation, and that's what will help give you a stronger hand position when you're upside down today, if you do decide to go upside down. Then just take the arms back into a cactus position, and what you can do is take the arms straight up overhead. Palms can face in or forward. You know, if you lack external rotation in the arms, palms in can help give you that. So just for a few seconds, I'm trying to get my shoulders up to my ears while keeping my ribs in. And then I'm going to go back into a cactus position. I'll take the arms up one more time. Shoulders all the way up to the ears, really reaching up through the arms. And then taking the arms back into a cactus and back all the way down. So I'm going to do some single leg squats. Very linear, very straightforward. As this gets easier, then you can do more eclectic squats. So I'm just stepping forward with my feet, and then I'm going to step my left foot back. I'm not in a huge stance, not a really long stance. If you lack balance, make your stance wider. Like, think one side of your mat and the other. That'll help. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend my right knee. I'm emphasizing and bringing the knee forward, which is a one-legged squat, right? And then I'm coming up just so I'm up. I can line up my feet up more. I'm bringing it forward. I'm taking myself up, bringing it forward and down. So I want the knee to be going forward past the toes eventually if I can. And then up, and then forward, and then up. If you're just staying on one leg, it's to progressively overload the leg, adapt the leg so the leg's getting stronger. You're not really strong, you could alternate the legs, right? So I'm coming forward, bringing myself up. If I want to make it more difficult, I could stay overhead and do these, right? And then one more time, coming forward. Right? And maybe you're not as low as I am. And then back up, and then I'm going to bring my arms down. I'm going to step the left foot forward and the right foot back. Like I said, if you have good balance, line up the feet. The more balance you have in these positions, have the arms down or bring them up overhead. Sit low, bring yourself up, keep your belly, your ribs in. Coming up, bringing yourself forward and down, up. And it could be 90, right? It doesn't have to be super, super low. As your body gets healthier, low is great. But I know that not everybody can do that. So push through the heel, the left foot, bring yourself up, coming down, coming up, and bringing the arms down. You can step the right foot forward. So I'm going to strengthen now the hamstrings a little bit before we get on the hands. So I'm just having my hands behind my butt. If you run a lot, your hamstrings are probably very strong. If you're not a runner, the hamstrings are probably weak. So my hands are just behind me, and I'm bringing my left foot up and down and up. I'm alternating the legs, so a little bit of coordination. But as I'm trying to kick my butt with my foot, but curling it up will help strengthen it. So just a few more of these. And they could be running, you running, a short distance, 20, 30 feet, something forward and back. just I'm not going to do that, but I'm just walking through the feet. And you could set a timer. You know, if you really want to get the legs to be stronger, do it for 2 minutes straight. So just a couple more, and then back. So, like I said, when you kick up, when you get into kicking up, it's lack of strength in the hamstrings. So come down on your hands and your knees, and when you come down on your hands, have the hands straight forward where the index fingers are forward, and just press through the hands and just kind of feel the weight in the hands. So move the weight forward into the front of the fingers if you could. Bring it into the right hand. Bring it into the left. Bring it to the heels of the hands. And then just let the chest kind of move down. And then press back up. So shoulder blades are wide apart. And that's what will help in getting you to be in this type of position. So I'm going to bring it forward a little bit just to stretch out the hands. Right? And then I'm going to bring it back in space. I'm going to let the shoulders fall in. This is retraction. It's what you need for back bending. So push to the hands, retract the shoulders, right? And then take it up into a plank where the knees are up off the floor. So just hold the plank, but if you can do some scat push-ups here, let the chest move down in between the arms, and then push it up. Let it move down, bring it up. Bring it back down. These, you know, they're very basic, but they're very good to do, you know, especially if you're trying to get your handstand. I'm going to do a couple more. Chest down. When you do this, notice if your head's moving. It's a common mistake. So just let the chest move down, not the head, and then press back up and hold it, hold it, hold it, and then come back down. And then when you come down, you're going to turn your hands out to the sides. And with the hands turned out, if you've never done these before, these are heel lifts. So they're sometimes called finger push-ups. But you're lifting the heel of your hands off the floor. So lifting and then lowering. Lifting, lowering, lifting up. I've said this before. You can have a hand routine, like a consistent routine. You keep it really consistent for, 4 or 6 weeks, something like that. And if it's really productive, it's good for you. Well, you can certainly keep it, but you wanna kind of see what's actually going to help you, because when you're doing these types of exercises, you might not necessarily see what's better for you if you're always changing it up. So I'm going to lower the heels of the hands. So notice how my shoulders are more forward over my hands, and then I'm taking my hands up. It's much more difficult to take the knees back further because the hands will have more weight to them. And then I'm going to come down. Now I'm going to turn both of my hands back towards my knees. And when my hands turn back like this, I'm just going to move the weight around to adjust the hands to wrists. And this really assimilates the handstand. So this is really difficult for you. You'll want to spend more time in this because you're bringing, all of your weight over your hands in these types of positions. So I'm going to I'm peeling my hands off the floor, bending my elbows, and just kind of try to get more manipulation in the more tight hand or wrist, right? That might be your right hand, might be your left. For me, it's my left hand. So I'm going to come back into a plank again. For handstands, index fingers are straight forward, and that'll help you with the rotation in the shoulders. So press back through the hands, widen the shoulders, and lift the knees off the floor. So lift up into this position, and then take it up into a down dog. So pull back through the hips. And as you pull back through the hips, I'm going to come down onto my knees. What I'm focusing on today is more bent arm strength. And when we get to that point of going up into a handstand, whether it be the wall or we're kicking up, you might just be tired. So this could be the beginning of your practice, like more conditioning, but it could also be like kind of the end if you still need to get stronger. The more you bend your arms, the more difficult it is. Like push-ups are more difficult than planks, as an easy example. But when you get into pushing, it's like you're repeatedly pushing yourself into a handstand, which I find is more difficult. So what I'm going to do, the first round they're handstand push-ups, but they're pipe push-ups. My feet I'm not going to elevate my feet the first time. But what you can do is just work on the eccentric. And the eccentric, isn't super flashy, but it can get you very strong. And the good thing about eccentrics is you can repeat them. You know, you could do, so say if you could only do 2, you'd want to do like 10 sets or something like that. I'm not going to do that many just because of the time constraint of the class. But, you know, that's something that you could do on your own, right? So I'm going to take it up into a down dog, a short down dog. I'm going to pedal the legs out. And as I pedal the legs out, what we're going to do is bring the feet forward. And then when I'm forward, when you're coming into this, we're going to bring the head more forward than the hands. So it's really going to load up the hands and the shoulders. Just be, you know, if you can't make the full range of motion, bring your knees down before you fall, right? It's, you know, obviously you don't want to crash, but you want to really resist the exercise. I'm just going to do eccentrics. I'm going to do 5. I'm going to lift the knees up off the floor, and when I come down, I'm going to move my weight forward. So I'm here. I'm bringing my head forward, 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 forward. Now I'm just going to, as an example, bring the knees down and bring the head down if you want to bring it down, right? But that's the eccentric. It's like working really, really hard will help you press back up into like, you know, handstands. But you know, this is much harder than an actual handstand, to be honest. So I'm going to lift the knees up. You know, handstand's difficult because it's a skill to balance in. So I'm going to lower, keeping elbows in, hips up, and then coming down with the knees, just for you, right, to come down. I should come down and then press it back up. So come down, come forward. Try not to use one arm more than the other if you can. So coming forward, coming down. Take it back up into down dog. 2 more. Forward, 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 forward. Resist, resist, resist. Knees down. Come back up again. Last time, come forward. Use your abdomen. Keep your shoulders active. Forward, 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 forward. Knees down. And then come back into on your hands. We're going to stretch out the hands a little bit more. So have the hand, just one hand. My left hand is back. Just move it around into the hand. Bend the elbow if you need more leverage. Stretch out the wrist, stretch out the forearm. Take it back where the right hand is turned back and the left hand is forward. When you do it individually, you can kind of really see more of what you're working with. You know, you might turn both hands back and you know which hand is tighter for you. But when I do one hand individually, I can be a little bit more specific in adjusting the hand to wrist. So take it back up into a down dog. So lift up into down dog. Reach through the heels of the feet. And come forward into a plank. Slowly, 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 slowly lower. And just coming up into a Sphinx pose. So when you lower down from plank to the floor, maybe you could, even though you might be a little bit more tired than you're used to, maybe you can kind of see like, you know, I am a little bit stronger. So like when you do a lot of work, like a lot of physical training in terms of like handstands, the very end, sometimes I feel a lot stronger. And you would think that you should feel weaker. But it's a lot of it is you're training more and more of the nervous system to overload and like to adapt. So it's like good, strong training. You just keep at it, and over time, right, your body's going to adapt, your mind's going to adapt. So I'm going to come down where my hands are underneath my shoulders, and I'm going to lift up into a low cobra. I'm going to keep my hips down, and I'm working the extension. Just the extension of the spine helps with overhead positions. So I'm going to come forward, I'm going to come down. I'm going to broaden my back, broaden my shoulders, and then I'm going to curl up into a straight arm position. Hips are low. If I want, you know, it's not bad to have the hips up, right? If you want more leverage of the lower body, the lower back, the lumbar, it's good to have your hips off the floor. You know, some people have more of a kyphotic arc in the lumbar, so this can really bring a lot of weight there. But if you already have a good arc, it could be too much weight, and that's why you might want to keep the hips down, focus more on the thoracic. So bring yourself forward, bring yourself down, have your hands just underneath your shoulders, press through the hands, and look straight up into plank. and back up into down dog. So coming back up into the down dog, pedal the legs out. I'm just gonna walk my hands back towards my feet, just walking back and then walking forward. So the transferring of the weight from hand to hand will help you in walking your feet up the wall with your wall walks. So I'm gonna transfer left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, right hand, left hand, back into a forward fold, back one more time into a plank. I'm going to come onto the tops of my feet and lean forward. So let's say, because I'm going to do a wall walk, you can't do wall walks, work on plank on the tops of the feet. I'm going to tuck the toes. Last time I'm walking back, right, into a forward bend. I could also squat, right, if I want to work on squatting. So if you're injured or you're just really not up for it today, or you're not feeling strong enough to walk up the wall, you certainly don't have to do that. But the wall walks are more difficult than kicking up, typically, for people. So it's good conditioning. I'm just going to do 3. Don't walk all the way up. I say this all the time. If you walk up and you just can't come out, you're putting yourself at risk where you could really hurt yourself. So when it's really difficult to walk back more, just stay with that range and then hold it, right? Or walk back out. So when you're walking up the wall, it's just transferring the weight from hand to hand. So you really, it is strength, right? But it's also a coordination that you have to shift the weight from side to side to get the feet up higher, right? And it can be a bit scary, so maybe you just take your feet up the wall. That's what you do today, but over time you're walking close to the wall. I'm not walking incredibly close to the wall. I'd say, I'd start with, maybe 1.5 feet is a good goal to have. But then as it gets easier, sure, you can get in closer. You want to keep your back in a hollow position. You want to keep the torso hollowed. So bring your hands down, take one leg up the wall, then transfer the weight from hand to hand. Walk back to the wall if you can. Just push. A couple seconds. Walk forward. Right, walk forward. Forward and down. And you could squat. And maybe that's just one. It's a good start. This is not easy. It's usually not taught this way, like in yoga, because it's just difficult in a room, right? Not everybody's going to be doing the same thing to learn a handstand. I mean, if you have experience, of course, that can be done. Bring the hands down. We're going to do a couple more. So take one leg up, transfer the weight, move it around, keep the belly, keep the ribs in, and press back out. Come down, squat if you need to. Go back up if you can. So walk back to the wall. Again, I'm probably closer than you. And if you're as close as me, great. Keep the chin in. Press through the hands. And then walk back out. So come down into a squat. So when you come into a squat, just open and close the hands. Right? If you need it, make your right hand into a fist and just pull the fist to the soft portion of your forearm, just to stretch out the wrist. And again, that's difficult for you to do that a couple times a week. That's a good starting point. Start with a low number, 2, 3. You could spread them out. When I'm doing a specific handstand practice, I'm really timing myself. It's very methodical in terms of the approach. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be really free and you just, okay, I'm going to do it for a minute. But if you want to get somewhere, you're going to have to keep going over what your current level of strength, awareness, you'll have to really build it up that way. If you say you're striving for a 20, 30-second handstand, you want to get to a minute, right? You really do need a systematic approach to get to that. You have to just keep going higher and higher with your times. But it doesn't come in one day, right? It's most likely going to be a year process, something like that, at the minimum for some people. So I'm going to come back into a down dog. So take it up into a down dog, pull back through the hips. I'm going to come forward and through into an up dog, lift the chest, press back up into a down dog, come forward, come through, up dog, pull back to a down dog, walk the feet forward. As you walk forward, you can walk the hands back and slowly, slowly, slowly taking yourself up into a standing position. So have the hands on the hips, move the tailbone down underneath you, really get the glutes involved, then stick it out and bring it down. And this really helps with the portion of balancing and handstands. You probably have a good understanding of weight in your hands especially when you're doing the wall walks. Stick it out. But getting the lower body integrated when you're overhead, like when you kick, makes a big difference. It's just like you just feel a lot more stable. So stick it out again, and then bring it down, and then you can let that relax. Again, I'm going to incorporate some more motions of the legs, and these are just like a simple dragon squat. So what I'm doing is I'm stepping my left foot behind my right foot. I'm stepping relatively close here, and then I'm bending the knee, and I'm trying to sit back on the back foot. Now you don't have to sit as low as I am, right? I'm coming up, I'm going to step back with my right foot. I'm sitting back on the right foot. When I was on the toes earlier and having the heel up, like I said, this is the very beginning of these types of exercises of getting low. It's, more martial arts kind of movements or stances. So very, very good for the knees eventually, right? So I'm stepping back with the right foot. I'm doing it slow just so that not too overwhelming for someone, but the pace doesn't have to be this pace. I'm just doing it just so that you can see it better. And then over time, when you get tired, sometimes I don't always count. It's more I'm basing it off of fatigue. When I'm tired, then I'm stopping, but I'm typically doing multiple sets to train the legs so that I can move more fluidly. So I'm stepping my left foot back, coming down, pressing through, it's all this. It's really the front leg is what's powering you up. It's not bad if you're using the back leg to come up, but try to use the front leg to come up. Just one more, I'm going to sit back. I'm sitting down and then pressing through the left foot and back up. So I'm going to kick up. I'm going to do some kick-ups as far as kicking up. And I'm going to alternate the legs just for coordination. You can't do that. It's okay. But just getting the rhythm of kicking up, I think, is a very good thing to learn. So if it's just not happening yet, videotape yourself from the side, and it's really getting your shoulder forward enough over the hand. So if you can't, it's very hard to have that awareness. So what you could do is you could put a yoga block behind the hand, the forearm, and it forces your shoulders. If you're knocking the block over, this is the example. If I'm here and my shoulders are back here, it's going to be hard for me to kick up because you just don't have the alignment. So if you're that person, like I've been trying to kick up for years, I just can't get up, it's getting your shoulders forward. And when you get that shoulder lined up over the hands, that's when you gotta start pushing more. So if I'm not pushing enough, really pushing through my hands, I'm putting myself at risk in hurting the hand or hurting the wrist, right? So you really have to push hard. And like I said earlier, get the shoulders to lift towards the ears. Do it a bit more than you think, and that'll help you get up, and it's a bit scary because when you really push hard, that moment, especially if you're doing it in the middle of the room, you'll be like, oh my God, I'm balancing, oh my God, and that's an honest feeling to have, but it feels shockingly easy when you get to that point. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I can do this. But then it gets difficult as you hold it for, say, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and beyond, right? It gets more difficult. But kicking up is good conditioning, right? So we're going to go to the wall. I'm not incredibly close to the wall with my hands. I'm far back enough so that I don't hit my back up against the wall. So if you find your back hitting the wall, then you're too far forward with the shoulders. And that's a big reason why people have wrist problems. So it's something in between is really what you're trying to find. So I'm going to come down with my hands. I'm going to protract through the shoulders, really protracting through the shoulders. Just walk in, right? Press, 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 press. Hold that, and maybe that's your kick up. And you could try to get your back to the wall, but if your back is coming to the wall, have your hands closer to the wall. Just so it's not so overwhelming in the wrist. But like I said, I'm going to kick up. I'm going to alternate the legs just for coordination. So I kick the right leg up, and then the right leg will come down, and then the left leg will be the swinging leg, and we're going to alternate that. So press through the hands, pull the abdomen in, kick up. So left leg is going to come down, and then the right leg is going to come up. Press. Press up. And then you come down. So as you get more experience in pushing, pressing, right, the arms will get more straight. You'll feel stronger in your hands. You'll be able to support yourself. And when that day comes, you might be inclined to try to kick up or try to hold it, right? And it's probably not going to be perfect. And it's a little, it's going to be off. It really takes time. So it's you're not quite there, and you've been trying for a while. I've said this before in other classes: is take a week off from it. Take a couple weeks off from it, but get back into it and get back into like more fundamental work, like planks and push-ups, stuff. All that is relative, and you could write it out for yourself. And if you don't know a way of writing it out, I write out plans for people. It's something that I could work with you online if that's something that you're interested in. So come down on the hands, lift the hips, pull back through the thighs, come forward into plank, and then in plank, slowly, slowly lower. Lower, 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 lower. Right? Come up into a low cobra or a higher cobra. Bring yourself down. Like I said, most people have a hard time in an overhead position. It's usually thoracic spine, thoracic extension. So lift yourself up into a higher cobra if you can, but keep the hips down. You don't have to get your feet close together, but it might be good leverage for you, and that's why you'd want to do it. So don't base something off of just something that someone's telling you to do, because it might not necessarily be the right thing for you to do. Like, I use things that have helped me or others, but I know very well if it's not working for someone, I'm going to change it. I'm not going to just use the old approach of like, well, that's how I was taught. So keep lifting yourself up in space. Bring yourself forward. Bring yourself down. Tuck the toes. Lift straight up into plank. And go back up into a down dog. And just walk it in a little bit closer. Walk the hands back towards the feet. And just enough forward bend. So take the hands to the left side. Change the angle of the forward bend. Take the hands to the right side, change the angle of the forward bend, and then take it back into the middle. I'm going to come into a squat, and then as I'm squatting, right, I'm just kind of playing around with how I can extend more through the upper body, through the back. Like just, something that I've mentioned before in other classes is that when you're doing handstands, whether it be a minute or two, if you're doing the systematic approach that I've mentioned, is that you probably want to take at least 2 minutes off in between. And it's great to take less time, but it is more taxing. So if you don't have a lot of time in the day, that's something that you could do is you could do 5 rounds or 3 rounds, right? Do your kick-ups for a minute, time yourself, but then take 60 seconds off in between. That's really difficult to do it that way. But it's a very good way. And there's other ways that I I write it out for people, but that's a good approach. But in between, what you could do is you could squat, or work on your wrist, or mobilize your shoulder in between. The more you do, the more it takes away from the actual task. You wouldn't think like you're using brain power, but it adds up. So you may want to just relax in between so that you have full attention into the next handstand that you do, right? If that makes sense. But that's just my point, is that you can squat in between. So we've been squatting probably for about 1.5 minutes. So I'm going to come and do those pike push-ups again. But when you do them, do the eccentric if you're really tired. But let's say you're like, hey, I want to try coming up. You could do that. And like I said, this is towards the end of it, so we're kind of done. So it's kind of like a closer, really kind of tap you out, like in terms of strength. To get stronger, you have to put yourself in positions that are more difficult. So it's like, it's not easy to get stronger. It is if you're not very strong. It's much easier to get stronger that way, but as you get stronger, then you have to get more creative, or, like I said, really overload the process, right? So I'm going to come up into a plank or into a pike position, and then I'm going to lower out in front. But then I'm going to press up, right? Come forward with the head, excessively forward. Press back up. Come forward, slow. Then you come to your knees if you need it. Then you go back up, right? 2 more. Then come forward, elbows in, back up. Forward, down, back up. And then coming down on the knees and sit back on the heels. So another way of doing this is, because, like I said about balancing, is people get really frustrated with just kicking up or doing the walls. It can be can be really hard. I understand that for people. So the conditioning it's more physical in some ways, but it is easier because it doesn't require as much skill. So that's why I like that, is that you could do 2 skill practices a week and more. And it is conditioning as well. But then you could also have some separate conditioning training or practice in addition, and they'll all kind of come together where you can be a little bit, because it's both worlds. It's not just physical, it's where you are in space. So take it up into a down dog. Press back through the thighs. Right. Walk forward with the feet, and walk the hands back to the feet, and slowly roll yourself up into a standing position. And then as you're standing, I'm going to take my feet out in a wide position. So my feet are wide. Just going to open up more of the hips and stretching out the lower body. And then as I'm here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the weight into my left foot. My left foot's turned out. I'm sitting into a Cossack, right? I'm going to come up. So I'm doing it so that you get enough practice and range so that you can do it more fully. And often when people are doing something a little bit more fully, is that they go well beyond what they can do, and that's partially why it doesn't improve. So I wish it was just as simple as get as low as you can, and you'll always have that. It's really not the truth. You could get as low as you could, but I would do it for a short amount of time, like 10 seconds. Like say this was your low position, right? You hold it 10 seconds, but you do it multiple times, right? And you really don't have to do it every day. I mean, if you want to do it every day, you certainly can, but you don't have to, I honestly, if I'm working towards greater range, I might be doing something more than, maybe 2-3 times, but nothing more than that. Just because I like to practice many things throughout the week. So I'm never just like, I gotta do that every day, I gotta get it. Like, if I get further with it, I'm happy, but it's not like my life doesn't depend on it, right? So I'm sitting lower, I'm going to elevate the toes on the right foot, and I'm purposely taking the arms forward to stretch out my back more. So I'm bringing it forward and down, which will help in other positions. All right, so take 3 deep breaths here. Right, bring your hands down if you need them. Use your hands, you can walk them over, right? You know, using your hands is great. You know, if that's what you need, then that's what you need. I'm here, I'm forward with my arms. Right? If there's a lot of weight in the front leg, the right leg, try to bring it into the back leg too, right? So take a couple deep breaths here, and then bring the hands down and have the legs wide, and then you're just going to come up into an upright position. So I'm upright, pressing the legs apart, just in an upright position. So we'll come to the floor, do some positions on the ground. So try to bring the tailbone down, try to lift the pubic bone up. Take a couple deep breaths here, and then bring the hands down and step the feet in a little bit closer, just as a little wider than the shoulders, and come back into a squat. And all these things, you know, work up to a bigger position. But again, make it easier when you need it to make it easier, make it more progressive, and hold it longer or hold it more frequently. I like more frequency more than anything. Like with any variation that we did today, like squatting or lunging, handstanding, like if you do too many repetitions, you're putting yourself at risk, right? But if you keep the repetitions low, but you do it more frequently, it's less risky, and it's, you know, I really think we should all be practicing throughout the day, not just like not just like a dedicated hour, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as an example. So I'm going to sit back with my hands and take my legs out, or take my feet into a Baddha Konasana position. So my feet are together, my knees are wide, and I'm going to elevate my hips up off the floor, and I'm pushing my knees apart. So I'm driving my legs apart. I'm just in a nice upright position just to get more into the hips. And like I said, it's good to get a handstand, but I would take lower body mobility over a handstand. You know, I'm happy that I have my handstand practice, but you know, if you can't move around because of your legs, you say you have problems with your feet or your knees or your hips, you know, then your life isn't as you don't have as many options in terms of what you can do physically. So bring your hips down, take your legs out wide, and that's a big reason why I include that in this class. Is like, you know, you want to have those options, you know, no matter what the age you are. So I'm going to come forward over the leg. I'm coming forward. I'm taking my arms out. I'm down. You'd think the longer I hold it, the more benefits I'll get. I think for your nervous system, if you want to relax, that's how I would approach it. But in terms of just flexibility or range, going in and out of the pose may actually be better. So I can come forward and come down. I've done both. You know, I've been in this position for more than 20 minutes at a time, right? And like I said, the next day or the next week, I feel good. Not like I hurt, but I don't have like more range. You know, I have just about the same. But when I do spend more time coming into the pose, but then coming out, it's like you're learning to go a bit further each time. And nothing crazy, right? Coming up, coming down. So you could hold it for anywhere from 3, 10 seconds, something like that. But after 10 seconds, you'll be like, you'll notice it gets a little easier. And that's good, right? You feel good about that. But in terms of range, you're not going to increase more range. So I'm coming forward over my right leg, right? Arms are wide. If I really want more leverage forward and down, I could take my arms overhead. That's the most weight that I can produce on my own to come forward. But when I come up, I'm going to take my arms out so that there's less stress for my back, right? But I could do it again, right? So you really need that leverage forward and down. Arms overhead is, like I said, more progressive. Take the arms out. And you could use a little bit of weight. You know, I wouldn't start with a big heavy weight. no more than 10 pounds, I think is enough to start with. Especially if you have a yoga practice, I wouldn't go more than 10 pounds. You know, if you told me you were, you only did weights your whole life and you're kind of tight, sure, you could use a little bit more weight, but not like the more flexibility you have, the less weight you really need in adjusting you. Like when I was teaching classes, when I was with people, the most flexible person in the room is probably what I'm going to adjust the least. I mean, I could take them further, of course, because they have more range, but it's the person that is like really tight, they would need more adjusting. So you could play around with this. You could bring yourself up and you could sit cross-legged. So just do a counter twist. Have the left hand on the right knee. Keep the chin in line with the chest. It's very hard to do. So keep the head in line with the torso. And then as you're turning your upper body, then you can turn your head. But most often people are just turning from the head, not really turning so much through the torso. Turn forward, take your right hand to your left knee, take your left hand behind you, keep your chin in line with your chest. This is a way to do it. Keep the hand in it. It'll really inform you if you're turning your head more than you think you are. So I'm getting a good lift and twist. And you can turn forward. All right, I hope that was a good class for you. I had a good time. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for all the support. Share my contacts or my services with people. It helps me teach more and more people. I want to help people as much as I can. It's a very stressful time for a lot of people. So I have more basic classes that could help people. These classes are uploaded onto my YouTube channel. So I'm making more shorter videos. So if you like my style of teaching, you can get notified when those classes are uploaded. For the month of February, I usually have a class on Saturdays. I don't have that class, but I do have a Zoom class on Saturdays at 9 a.m. Once I'm done with my training, I'll go back to teaching on Saturdays again live. And you can always send me a comment if there's something that you'd like me to teach or be more specific with. I'm happy to make a video on anything to help you with your practice. All right, have a beautiful weekend and take care of yourself. And if you'd like to support the class, all my donation information is on my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. All right, take care.